Good morning. Excellent, that's working. I'm Patrick Haston, Head of Cloud Transformation at the Cabinet Office. Just to tell you a little bit about myself, I actually started my IT career here in Edinburgh and working for Scottish Natural Heritage, then became Nature Scot, and I stayed with them for 29 years, so it's quite a long time. Far too long, probably, but it was a great place to work, and I learned a lot. I worked through software development. I was head of software development there, and then shifted across sideways to work on their ERP systems. It was Oracle E-Business Suite. We set up a shared service with some other NDPs in Scotland, and then we did a move to cloud, Oracle Cloud, and then on the back of that, during lockdown, having done the move to cloud, I was thinking, what's next for me? And a small organization like that, there's not really a lot of opportunities. But everybody was working from home, and I thought, well, and the opportunity came up in the Cabinet Office and I thought, well, that's a chance to take the knowledge and learning that I've done from implementing cloud in one organization and apply that to other organizations as well. And so that's what I did. I applied, and to my surprise, got the job. And that's what I've been doing the last two and a half years. I won't, there's no denying it. Moving from a small NDPB to working with big government departments across Whitehall, massive culture shock, massive imposter syndrome. But I learned, it took me a few months, to be honest, to learn that actually the issues are the same. It's just the scale is different. It's all the same problems, all the same worries, all the same concerns. But I'll tell you about the program we're doing. And so what we're doing is it's called the Shared Service Strategy for Government. And in a nutshell, we're moving the whole of the UK civil service from whatever ERP back office systems they have at the moment onto 5 shared service centres. So that's quite a massive undertaking. And just to give you some of the context, why we're doing this, it's this strategy was, the move to cloud is not a new thing. It's been around for a while. We had a few early adopters within government who had moved early. So with HM Treasury and the Home Office were a couple of those early adopters. The costs of those programs were quite significant, and as we did the calculations, back of an envelope calculations to say, well, that's how much it cost for that department, how much should it be for the rest of the departments, and you add it up, and it was something in the region of 1.7 billion, which is a not insignificant sum of money to be spending on could be not much more than a lift and shift if it wasn't done right. And it's hard to justify that. And the return on that investment would have been not just in years, but probably in decades, if ever. So there's a pause, and existing contracts or procurements were stopped, and we rethought the strategy, and we said, instead of going individually, each department on its own, we want you to come together into what we call 5 clusters of departments. And it's not going to be just a lift and shift, it's going to be a transformation. We want you to be doing things differently. It's a shared service, you're going to be implementing 5 shared services based on 5 ERPs. Huge opportunity, because you can see here the numbers of people, the numbers of transactions, the volume of information, stuff that gets done. Big opportunities to save money, to do things better, and going on to, so that was a context. The strategy itself, we didn't want to just be a lift and shift. We wanted to it has to be a real transformation. We need to do things differently. We need to, a lot of the systems that are in place are end of life, and they are not a great user experience. So it's clunky, lots of manual workarounds, far too much bits of paper or off-system work happening. So huge opportunities to make things a better experience, improve processes. Things are done differently in different departments. Within the civil service, there's quite a lot of lateral movement as people move from department to department to progress their career. And that's kind of encouraged, really, to get, so you've got leaders within the civil service who've got a broad range of knowledge of how things work in across government. But the overhead of actually those career moving from one department to another is quite significant, and it's not helped by the fact that each department did things slightly differently. And that also makes getting a whole of government view on what's going on quite difficult, because it's recorded differently as well, and it's not the degree of standardization and data standards and consistency that you really need to be able to do that big picture reporting, to say, even simple things like how many civil servants do we have? It's not sure that we actually got a standard definition of exactly what's counted. Is it people who are on what type of contracts does somebody have to be on to be counted as a civil servant? So there's not even doing that basic stuff is difficult, much harder than it should be. So as part of the shared services strategy, we've got departments coming together onto a cluster. Of course, they're all going to say, we're special, we're different, we can't possibly use the same system as them because we do it our own way, and they do it differently, and our way is far better, but theirs is rubbish. So what we've been doing is working with what we call the functions, which is government finance function, government commercial function, civil service HR, to actually define what the right way of doing things in government should be, and have one standard process that we'll all use. So when people say, but we're different, we do our purchase to pay process is like this, and it's different from theirs, and so now we'll be able to say, actually, it shouldn't be different. You shouldn't need you all to come together onto a standard way of doing things, and you can do that as you move on to this new ERP which you're going to build together, and some of those barriers to coming together are being removed. So we've got process convergence, we've got data convergence as well, which is even more important because that's going to give us that single view, able to aggregate the data from across government, but also it'll help enable interoperability. So we can have systems that can, in different parts of government, that can actually, the data can flow seamlessly between them because it doesn't need to be transformed and mapped onto different structures. It's just, it can go in the same format as it moves around to follow a business process that might span multiple departments. So that data standardization is really important. Modern tech, because the legacy systems, many of them are end of life, coming out of contract, but some of them are actually end of life as well. So the phrase "burning platform" has got real meaning. But moving on to the target is to move on to SaaS. I'm going to talk a little bit more about why SaaS was chosen and why we think it's the right answer for. But one of the advantages of SaaS is that it should help us avoid the issue which many departments are struggling with just now of legacy IT, which is on-premise kit that's really old, really difficult to support and maintain, but moving on to SaaS, which is supported and maintained by the software provider and regularly updated, we should have an evergreen solution that is, and we should not should avoid some of those issues of technical debt by having something that we can keep on top of and is always current and will be provided with the latest and greatest features, in AI and that everybody's been talking about this morning. The SaaS vendor should just handle that for us and just make that rich functionality available to us for us to take advantage of as it comes out. And we just need to consume that. We don't need to build it and worry about that. They do that for us. I'm going to move on to try and describe a little bit more about the technical architecture of what's there at the moment. So we've got 5 clusters. Just go around the top here. We've got Unity cluster. That's HMRC, Department for Transport, and the clunkily named DLUC, which is Department for Levelling Up and Housing and Communities, which is an odd mix, but there you go. The reason they're all in one cluster is because they've all long-term SAP users. So they're all based on using SAP at the moment, and it just made sense for them to continue to work together. They've always worked together and collaborated quite closely because they shared that common tech. And so that's next overseas, which is mainly the FCDO, which is the Foreign Office in old money. And they already had a program in place before this kicked off. They were already moving from their Oracle e-business suite to Oracle Fusion Cloud. And so we let them run with that. They had a bit of a pause because there was a merger with another department, and that created a bit of they had to do a bit of a pause and rethink. But still, they've managed to crack on and got defense cluster. They already had they too had a program in place, been running for a number of years, and again they'd selected Oracle as their technology of choice. They already had they had, even in defense, they had a number of different ERP technologies, but they planned to standardize on Oracle. So it's quite a complicated landscape because there's a lot of it's a kind of siloed thinking, and a lot of that is for operational reasons. There's a clear division between the civilian side of MOD and the military side, particularly in the HR space, because and part of that's for reasons of security, but also partly because the way that they interact with these back office, their HR system, for example, is very, very different. If you're a soldier deployed in the field, you can't just log on to your HR system to check your payslip. It's not the same as somebody working in an office. It's very, very different. So they have a heavily customized version of the Oracle e-business suite, which they use for their military HR at present. But their long-term vision is to have everybody using the same system. It's the brand is one MOD. It's one. So that's where they're at, mostly Oracle. I'm going to skip over that dark blue one, which I'll come back to that. I'll go to the Synergy cluster next, because that's the big one in terms of numbers, in terms of numbers of civil servants. But technically, it's probably the easiest. They've got the Synergy cluster's got the Home Office, Ministry of Justice, DWP, and DEFRA, and together they make up something like 60% of the civil servants in the UK. Those 4 departments, they're big beasts. But the good thing is that they're all already on a shared service for their ERP. not quite all the same technology. It's all Oracle. Home Office were one of those departments that were an early adopter of Oracle Cloud. The rest are using a version of the e-business suite, which is the same instance of e-business suite. It's a shared service that's set up, started back in 2012. So it's been running for a long time, and it's one of these legacy systems that is particularly clunky, but it's actually been a huge success because it's because of the size of the customer base. We've been able to negotiate really good deals with Oracle, and the cost has been really low. The cost per transaction is pretty low, and it's, apart from the fact that it is a very old system and needs, it's coming out of support, so it needs something. It needs some TLC. Needs some investment in it. Even if we were to keep on the e-business suite, it would need to be upgraded and updated. It just doesn't. It doesn't have the scale, the range of functionality that people are looking for now, and that's partly because the ERP vendors have moved on. They will continue to support and maintain their old on-premise solutions, but all their focus and effort is on their cloud technologies. So if you're wanting all the good shiny stuff that you can get now, you really have to be moving on to the newer technology platforms. So, but it's the success of that shared service actually makes the business case really difficult, because you've already got something that's actually really low cost. So how can you? So just doing a lift and shift from something that's really cheap, cheap as chips really, onto something that's probably a bit more expensive to run, that doesn't add up. So you have to do more than just do a lift and shift. You have to invest in that business transformation, and that's use the new features that the technology gives you to actually change how you do things in the business, and that's where you can make your business case. So that's the synergy challenge. Matrix cluster is complicated because it's just a number of organizations in that cluster. It was 8 departments. Now, because of the breakup of bays of business, economic, industrial strategy, they are now been split into 2 departments, and so there's now 9 departments, and they are using something like 15 different ERP technologies across those departments. It's really, really complicated, and so getting but in terms of the actual numbers of civil servants, it's quite small. It's only something like 6% of the headcount across government. So, but it's just difficult. Lots of conversations to be had. Getting that negotiation has been really, really difficult. They've set up a central program team, and they've made good progress. Of course, it's not just about the ERP. We're talking about an ERP doesn't do everything. It does a lot, but it doesn't do everything. There's a lot of other technologies that exist in the back office, and the same across any large organization will have in excess of 100 different systems that they have running to support, running in the back office. And this is just a list that we came up with of some of those systems based on what was reported to us from the different departments. And some of those are done as standalone systems, and some are done as exactly the technologies used in each department will vary. And what we're trying to do is look at how we can actually reduce that variation and get something that works better. So the target architecture, I said, have a little bit of look at that. Looked at SaaS. Why SaaS? Because the industry trends are not for monolithic solutions. It's we're talking about DevOps, composable architectures, breaking things into small, repeatable chunks that you can aggregate up. And that's great if you need to be agile and slick and you react to a changing marketplace and be innovative and good things like that. But that is not what the back office is like. The back office values stability. There's high risk in terms of if you're putting in a new payroll system, it is one of the worst projects you can ever do, because if you mess it up and people don't get paid, that is genuine P45 stuff. It's hard for an organization to recover from something that big of a mess up. And as well as if you're focusing all your effort and intention on the back office, then what are you not doing? You're not concentrating on your customers. And in the civil service, that's the citizen-facing stuff, and that's where we should be spending most of our time is developing good systems and technologies for the citizen, not in the back office. So SaaS is good because it outsources all that problem. Just hand it over to somebody else, and they solve that problem for us, and that's why we've gone down the SaaS route. Got some design principles. I'm going to focus on the design, the three for the clusters that we gave them. Single ERP for their shared service center. A lot of resistance against that, but we managed to convince them. We've found examples of where that's been done elsewhere across in other governments. Singapore, for example, Canada have been doing work in that space as well. So we had international examples which we could use to use some of the central government services that we've got, like civil service jobs, which is a single jobs portal for the whole of the civil service. It's already widely used, so we were encouraging more of that behaviour to use those, build it once, and rather than everybody having, reinventing wheels. So use those things, and those other technologies. Try and drive some convergence within departments. So if you're coming together to share your ERP, then use the same help desk software for your IT, because then you can actually you need to build fewer integrations from your ERP to your other back office systems if you've got more standardization within each cluster, and it simplifies the technology landscape. So. What does that look like? We're looking at doing as much, using the new cloud ERPs to do as much as possible through that. So we're moving functionality into that rather than having it and removing the need for standalone systems. I'm not going to read all this out because this will all be available later. So that was the strategy to get that simplification of the landscape. And the way we drove this through was by creating a technology roadmap, or asking the clusters, the five clusters who are running their own programs, to create their own technology roadmaps. So that's what we looked at. There's simple tools. It's just an Excel spreadsheet, but listing all the different back office technologies, and we managed to capture for the first time just how many different systems there were across government, which is an answer's over 1,300, so quite a lot. And target architecture, one ERP for each of the clusters, much simpler. Already we're seeing greater convergence. From the technology roadmaps, we can see how many systems are going to be converged into their ERPs. It's quite a lot. And then during that wider, other systems, we're seeing greater convergence there. So the numbers of technologies across government and numbers of separate systems are reducing vastly. So that's going to drive, massive savings, massive benefit for government. Just a quick snapshot of where we're at. Defence, well down the line. Overseas, they're now live with their Oracle solution. Synergy have gone out to market. They're out to market just now. Matrix are coming out to market in the next few weeks, very shortly. Unity, they've chosen their technology vendor. They're going to be looking for an SI to help them get configured. And then there's a couple of cross-government programs in there. One is the interoperability program, and the other is the functional convergence program, which is driving those standard ways of working and data standardization across government. So I've talked far too long, and I'm not giving you very much time for questions. Yes.
Oh. The sort of question was, obviously you've got a long way to go till you get into a kind of steady state, but what's the kind of thinking about how much of that ongoing effort is going to be put into continuous improvement and the sort of technical debt that invariably we all end up with regardless of the size of the programme?
That's a question that we're actually asking the clusters as to how they're going to address the technical debt that they will incur during the migration, because although the SaaS platform is continually being updated, you need to have some stability as you're doing that. So that's a question that we're posing to the clusters. What are they going to do to address that? But we're also asking them to set out what their plans are in terms of a centre of excellence for innovation, so that they can continue to innovate as an organisation, because it's in the SaaS platform, in the SaaS world, you can't actually just sit. Well, the platform is continually updating. There's new functionality being released, and if you don't have a business change program to take advantage of that, then you will fall behind, and you will get to the stage when some of the things that you've decided not to take are no longer optional, but they're mandatory, and you've got to, and then you have to scrabble around. And we don't want to be in that position. We want the clusters to be at the not just at the trailing edge, to be early adopters if possible, or at least on the taking advantage of all the functionality that the vendors are releasing on their SaaS platform, really for business, to get the maximum business value out of that.
Hi there. I wonder whether you could touch on the rationale behind 5 clusters as opposed to a single unified cluster. Is that purely based on the complexity and cost and the kind of shared systems that are already in place?
Yeah. Yes, it's 5. The exact logically, one makes absolute sense. Engineers, why would you, doing things? Why would you do things 5 times if you could do it once? It's just logically right. However, there's 2 big issues with that. One is by putting all our eggs in one basket, there's a vulnerability there, a commercial vulnerability, but probably more importantly, a security vulnerability. And, because some of the things that we have to defend against in the civil service is not just organised crime and and other hackers. It's actually nation states. So having all our eggs in one basket makes it a very attractive target. But also, just as difficult was getting the buy-in and getting that agreement from all these different effectively separate organizations to give up that degree of control, and working together as clusters was a compromise and was felt to be politically acceptable. And it's working.
You've just touched on it with the buy-in question that I was about to ask. The scale of what you're doing is huge. So how do you get the buy-in from all these clusters? Or is it a big stick case? We will do this.
Mm-hmm.
So how do you get the buy-in from all these clusters? Or is it a big stick case? We will do this.
There was an element of that. Yeah, absolutely. Especially at the start, there was a lot of skepticism, particularly from that synergy cluster, which is big departments. 50,000 and upwards, employees. They're used to having complete autonomy, and empires of masters of their own empires, and giving up that control was really hard. And it's actually there's been a push down from the top, from the most senior civil servants and ministers, just saying you will do this, but the technologists get it. So it's been a bottom-up push as well. So that's been helpful. Yeah, and thank you all very much.